Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it may be to you. And welcome to episode 2 on reviewing the planes that everybody just kind of forgot and passed over. Before I get started, I needed to clarify a few things about the Italians here. The first one was that there is a hidden premium called the CR42 Biz. Now, the CR42 Biz, only thing different with it is that it has two of the 7.7 millimeter machine guns in the wings. I haven't flown it out myself because I don't have it. I know that it was a premium you could buy for a little bit when the Italians first came out. I was on hiatus from War Thunder when it came out, so unfortunately I missed out on it. And I'm either going to have it through events or some sort of giveaway. But anyway, there was one thing other that I missed in my Italian review. I know I focused a lot on the monoplane Italian fighters. The Series 200s, the G50s, the Reed 200, so on and so forth. But I wanted to give a proper review to the Italian biplanes. They turn good and their guns suck. Anyway, since I also did make a bunch of comparisons, mostly of this plane, to the German tech tree, I figured that's the tech tree we'll do next. German low-tier aircraft. Some of their advantages is that they really reflect what high-tier German gameplay is like. Looking at the actual tech tree, the first reserve aircrafts that you get are the HE-51s. These three will be your lineup here. The differences between the A1, the B1, and please tell me that the last one's the C1. Hey, look at that. But anyway, what are the advantages of having the HE-51 as your German reserve aircraft? Well, first off, 7.92 caliber machine guns. 7.92 millimeter, I should say, sorry. And you get two of them. Right here, in the front, just like the Italians, and they fire straight out of the propeller. The better part about this is that they have a significant rate of fire increase, which I shall demonstrate. The guns on the HE-51, in my opinion, are better than most of the Italian tech tree at rank 1. Being in the nose, that's a very small cone of fire. And if you check the ammo in the top left-hand corner, it fires relatively quickly. So you get 3 of those. Now, there is one HE-51 that I'm aware of that is not in the game anymore. I mean, if you have it, then it is, but it is not in the normal tech tree. But since we're looking at the perspective of a new player, what you're getting into with the Germans, these are what you're going to have. And I'm trying to remember which one came with possibly the biggest joke in the game. Ah, here it is. 6 10-kilogram bombs. 6 of them. 6 of the smallest bombs in the game. I have to take it into a test flight because I don't normally have biplanes in my plane lineups, just because I'm not a huge fan of flying them. They're normally just a little too unpredictable for me, and I prefer flying monoplanes. take off here, and I'll show you these tiny little guns. Sorry, not guns, bombs. The guns are quite small, but they make up for it with a decent rate of fire. These 7.92s here are going to be the backbone of most small caliber guns for the Germans. Now, like I said before, they're not bad guns. They're kind of small, but being that they fire so quickly, you can usually get a few rounds in, even in hectic biplane gameplay. Yeah, those are bombs. Those tiny little things. Just a comparison of there's the pilot's head and there's him. There's the bomb. That's like the size of like a 2-liter. Just to give you a comparison, you're basically dropping 2 liters on them. That bomb dropped maybe 10 feet away from that vehicle there, and I only got a hit. These are... I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but it's just something you need to know, is that it's essentially just a joke. You need to drop so many in order to do any real damage. So basically, you get one drop of 60 kilograms if you spam them all at once. Don't even bother using them. They're a complete joke. Sometimes they're funny, but you're the only one that's going to be laughing. So when you move on from those, as you can tell, the Italians right here, there is one other German biplane, and it's the HS-123. Now this thing, I believe in-game classifies it as a dive bomber. Yeah, dive bomber biplane, and that's because it carries 4 50-kilogram bombs and then a 250 underneath. This is actually a pretty decent bomb loadout for a Tier 1 biplane, although in arcade it does take a little while to reload these bombs. But the best part about it is, after you've dropped your bombs, you have a perfectly capable biplane that has the same guns as the reserve aircraft and is capable of becoming a fighter. So that's kind of the main purpose of this, is that it's a bomber for like once during a match, at least in arcade. If you've gotten to the point where your bombs are reloaded, then good for you. But let's take a look at the Germans in rank 1. There's a lot through here. And just as a heads up here, I'm not going to be doing any gameplay in this video. I'm going to have the gameplay separate so the video is not too long, because it's already going to be long enough as is, kind of going over a general sort of sense of gameplay from these rank 1 aircraft. So, again, and from my Italian video, I don't know if these are in the game or not, or at least in the game for Germany. So, until I'm proven that they're there, I'm just gonna assume these are not there. So, we have a German heavy fighter line that goes all the way down to the Horten 229. We've got 2 separate fighter lines, with this one that properly starts off with the HE-100D1, but that's a rank 2 plane, and we'll get to those later. And then you get your first BF-109 down here. But the first plane we're going to talk about is the HE-112. So the HE-112 V5, these Iron Crosses here don't come standard. I just absolutely hate planes that have nothing on them, so I figured if this looks like an experimental aircraft, I might as well just put something on it. Because the other camouflage you get for it is the Japanese, because the Germans did send a few of these over to Japan. It was kind of more of like an exchange of information thing, not necessarily like a, hey, we're going to provide you with fighters. But anyway, two 7.92 millimeters. These are MG17s. There really isn't any super difference between the MG15s and MG17s. They both fire horizontal from one another in the prop hub here, so rather on the top, they're on each side. The gameplay that you get from the guns being on the side rather than on the top is really nothing super important. The guns are still in the front and firing forward. You really don't have to worry about convergence all that much. In terms of protection from yourself, it has no armor whatsoever, so anything that's going to go through it is going to cut it like a knife through butter. And also, like most low-tier planes, there's not a lot inside of the plane. You've got your engine with nothing behind it. You only have this oil cooling system and then your machine guns off to the side here. But any shots that go through the engine are going to immediately then hit the pilot. Obviously, the fuel tanks here tucked in on the wings. You kind of want to avoid head-ons as a general just safety thing from flying low tiers, because a lot of low tiers don't really have anything to protect you from head-on attacks. But that's really not what this plane was built for. This plane has a decent turn time of 15.5 seconds, but remember, that's just a rudder turn. And because it only has two props propeller, the engine isn't super powerful. It's only about 690 horsepower, which will get the job done, but don't expect greatness out of it. It's not an awesome plane by any stretch of the means, but it's good for what it is. It's a good 1.3 battle ranking aircraft. Then, if we continue on down the line, you get the HE-112A0, which, in a nutshell, is essentially the same plane as before. This one having about 630 horsepower versus 690. The biggest difference is it has a 20mm cannon in the nose. It fires through the engine block. The barrel goes through the engine block and out the prop hub right here. Three-bladed propeller, so you are going to have a little bit more in flight performance because you're going to have more air going over the wings. Also with the HE-112s, it has this reverse gull wing design. So you're going to have a little bit more maneuverability than just a straight wing design, because obviously there's less air resistance from an angle than just a flat line going through. But I guess you could say the disadvantage of this gun here, because this plane is basically all about the 20mm cannon, is that it fires really, 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 really slowly compared to the MG151s that you are going to get on the next plane in this first line here. Of course, with the HE-112s, you have full flap control, which is a blessing for some low-tier planes. But just to kind of give you a retrospective of how slow this gun fires. It's got 100 rounds in the belt. You don't think that's that much. That was 20 rounds. So you're going to have to either be firing at not low flying, not necessarily, but straight flying targets, so like bombers or ground attack aircraft, or just people who don't know what the heck they're doing. Or you're going to have to get lucky with some of your shots. This plane also is fairly decent at ground attacking. I believe it has like a ground targets belt that has a lot of armor piercing shots in it. Let's double check that. but it's kind of a gimmick plane. It's nothing really to write home about. It has one 20mm cannon that fires really slowly, compared to the other HE-112 that has two. It has a universal belt, which is armor piercing, high explosive fragmentation. This one's all high explosive fragmentation, incendiary tracer. I don't know why I have the universal build. I'll just have this one. And this one is an armor piercing incendiary shell. So yes, this one it would be your ground target belt. So moving on from there, you get the plane in this line that's sort of your first taste of what to expect from German aircraft. Is the HE-112B0. Now I have a different skin on it. Yours is going to look like this. Obviously, if you want, you can, with 60 kills, you can get the tricolor camouflage here, which is the, I believe, the Hungarian? No? It's just a Spanish Air Force. So, during the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s. The best part about this plane is that it has all of the maneuverability of the previous HE-112s with the same this is basically the same engine that you're going to get at the HE-112 with the 20mm cannon through the pop-up. This thing has two MGFF cannons with 60 rounds apiece. So this is going to be the first plane that's really going to kind of show you how to play as the Germans. So you've also got your standard two light machine guns here, opposite sides of each other in the engine. So in terms of armor, has no armor, and then internal layout is going to be basically the same once again. But with this plane, I really don't suggest turn fighting all that much because you don't have that powerful of an engine, so you're going to bleed a lot of that speed quickly. I would suggest using boom and zoom tactics with this. It has a fairly decent climb rate. Oh. The plane basically weighs nothing, so just take it up to altitude. This thing gains a lot of speed quickly. It loves to dive, so also be aware that you only have 60 rounds per gun, so you only have 120 bullets per, or cannon shells I should say. But you do get some decent belts with this. I mostly just use the air targets belt because it has a lot of self-destroying fragmentation high explosive shells, which will rip apart planes at this battle ranking fairly easily. Then we move on to a heavy fighter line, which starts off with the DO-17Z, this being the heavy fighter version of a Dornier 17. It does carry some bombs. You can get a 250 kilogram bomb or 10 50s. If you just want to go after pillboxes, go with the 250. If you want to go after lighter targets, go with that. I usually don't rock with bombs. I just use this as a heavy fighter. Obviously, the 32-second turn time here is going to deter a lot of people, but it's just because it's a bomber that they strapped a few guns on the front and labeled it as a heavy fighter. With the black camouflage here, I'm assuming it was used as a night fighter. In terms of protecting yourself, you do have some good chunks of armor here. You've got one 8.5 millimeter thickness here. The chair that the pilot sits in is also armored, so you also have this large piece of armored glass which sits behind the pilot. So I would actually suggest doing head-ons in this thing is probably the most how you're going to get your kills at this low battle ranking, because you're not going to be able to outturn anybody. You won't turn. This is not a turn fighting plane. The downside to it is obviously the massive turn time to it, and that just being a massive plane. But the engines have no armor protection whatsoever. They're very large, very open. If you want to shoot one of these things down, shoot it in the engines. And obviously, in the wings here, no protection from anything, and it just has very large fuel tanks, so getting shot at, this thing does not put out its fires easily. But like I was about to say before, you do have 2 defensive gunners. This guy here is going to be doing most of the work for you. This guy down here hardly ever does anything. He, as you can tell where his gun is pointing, he mostly just covers kind of underneath here, but planes back over here underneath you, you're going to have to maneuver your tail to where this guy can shoot at him, because this guy pretty much useless. Then possibly the best fighter in the entire game in terms of Tier 1. The BF-110C4. So, let's get started on how awesome this plane is. First of all, First of all, I didn't even go back to this. The armament. You get 3 MG-17 machine guns, which are here, here, and here, and you get 1 MG-151 50mm cannon, 20mm cannon right here. That cannon's going to be doing most of the work for you. So now we get to go on to the glorious BF-110. So the BF-110 really just comes down to one thing. It is the hardest hitting, in my opinion, rank 1 aircraft. You get 4 of the MG-17s plus 2 20mm cannons. You do have a defensive gunner back here, but he's pretty much pointless. I haven't really had any success with him back there. You basically just want to climb up, because you do get an attacker spawn. You climb up, and then you just dive and wreck everybody's day. You can carry some ordnance here. You can carry some decent ordnance. You can get 5 or 8 50s, 2 250s, or a 500. I usually just use the 500 and just drop it on a pillbox. Be aware, though, that in the tech tree, you do jump. Like the HE-112 B0 here, that's 2.3. You do jump from 1.7 to 2.3. That's something you need to be aware of. Just be careful that you are going to mostly go from facing biplanes and other low-tier aircraft to facing some aircraft that can actually do some serious damage to you and are fairly capable of performing very, very well. The BF-110 is probably one of the most reviewed aircraft in the game, just because everybody loves it. If you can get a chance to fly this thing, I highly suggest you do. It's pretty easy to get in terms of the tech tree. Just that big thing is jumping from 1.7 to 2.3. Then next in the heavy fighter line, you get the Ju-86, the Ju-88 C6. My goodness, if I can speak today, that would be great. So basically, this is a Ju-88 bomber, which they converted to a heavy fighter. Really, all you need to know about this is that if you play the DO-17, you've flown this. Except this now faces higher level targets, being at battle ranking 2.7, and you still basically have the same maneuverability. 27 seconds is still not a very good turn time in terms of, well, fighters. But you do get 3 20mm cannons here, in the nose, and there's a couple other guns down here, which you get 3 of the 7.62s, or the 7.92s, I should say, and then 3 of the 20s. Your turrets back here, you have some armored glass. Your turrets back here, you got one guy that operates both of these turrets here at the top. By the way, just really quick, look at the fuel tanks. Yeah, you are going to be, you will cook to a crisp. It's the best way to describe this plane if you get set on fire. But you do have some decent armor around your pilot here. Once again, bulletproof glass, piece of steel there. Your bottom gunner here, who controls, I think that's a, I want to say that's a dual mounted. Yep, there's 2 guns right next to one another. It's an MG81 machine gun, which it sort of looks like it's double-barreled, but anyway, this guy up here does most of the work. He operates both guns and is capable of firing both guns at the same time, at the same target. He just kind of needs to, it's a very small cone of fire for both guns, but a pretty large cone of fire for each gun individually. You can carry some ordnance on here as well. It can carry 20 of the 50 kilogram bombs, just in case if you want to do some ground attacking. But this thing is a bomber hunter, true and true. It gets a attacker spawn point, climb up to the bombers, and then just blend in with your team's bombers, and then just wreck face. So moving on, the attackers here, we already talked about the HS-123 a bit. The Stuka, the Ju-87B2. I always love the low-tier German ground attackers. You get fully upgraded. You can carry a 250, a 500, or a 250 with 4 50s, 2 in each wing. You do have 2 offensive armament of 7.92 machine guns here, plus a turret in the back for your gunner, which is a single 7.92. Sorry, I have an SKS. I'm used to saying 7.62 by 39. In terms of armor, though, you have a big piece of metal for your cockpit, or for your pilot, and then a not so big piece of metal for your gunner, which, if you're being shot at from the front, you have to shoot through both of them to hit your pilot. So it's, your pilot's pretty protected from behind, so long as they don't hit him in the back of the head. And you have nothing protecting you in the front, so do not do head-ons with this plane. Also, you have this large engine right here in the front with the liquid cooling system. Your engine will get toasty and then eventually kill itself. Then we move on to the R2, which is basically the same thing. It just has a different choice in bomb loadout and obviously skins. The bomb loadout for this, you ditch the bombs on the wings and you can get a 250, a 500, or a 1,000 kilogram bomb, which is this massive suppository right here, because that's what you do to bases. You stick this up their butt and the base goes bye-bye. Now we move on to the proper bombers. First you have these pencil bombers here, the E1 and the Z2. The E1 is something I suggest you sort of get away with as much as possible, because the DO-17Z is so much better in every way. I'm not even going to spend that much time on this one. You have no armor to speak of, and your bomb loads are not that impressive. But moving on to the DO-17Z2, things get a lot better because you get a bunch of armor. Look at that massive armor plate right there. That basically protects everybody in the cockpit. Not to mention, guns freaking everywhere. You got a gun down there. You got a gun here, which, by the way, you get to use. Oh, sorry, it's this one up here. This is just your front gun. You got a gun here, a gun here, a gun here, a gun here, and then obviously a gun in the back. So this is the one I would recommend you using. It's the exact same battle ranking. Unfortunately, the bomb load is still pretty much the same, but at least you're going to be more you're going to be able to defend yourself better. Then moving on to the HE-111, which is the primary bomber used by the Germans during the Second World War. You do have a nice little turret here on top here. Once again, they are all 7.92s. Like I said in my HE-111s, or my HE-112s, get used to these guns. So nothing really super awesome about it. You do have some couple pieces of armor for various different gunners in there. Your pilot, and there's one kind of like underneath here that protects the gunner in the front. You do have a large glass canopy here in the front, so head-ons with other planes is not recommended, because they'll just shoot right through that and hit that pilot, and you're bye-bye. In terms of your bomb loadout, you're actually pretty decent. You can get 30 250s or 8 250s. I usually just go with the 8 250s just because I don't have to spam the button so much to drop bombs. And you can kill a decent amount of ground targets with it. It's only battle ranking 1.7, so this HE-111 is really nothing to write home about, but it's there if you're a bomber pilot. The best bombers at Tier 1 for German, though, are these Ju-88s. Not the Ju-88C6, that's a heavy fighter. These ones here. Now, it just comes down to you can have 28 50-kilogram bombs with 2 250s. These things, if you get all these bombs on target, will one-shot a base. Which also you can go with 2 500s or 4 250s if you're more for taking out pillboxes or whatever, but I like the ability to being able to one-shot bases. And that's what they look like with the 4. I think I'll keep the 4 on there for now just to go after pillboxes. You do have one gun that you can control back here. You have a gunner down this way here. No armor protection whatsoever. But you do have a gunner down here. That's alright, but once again, this guy's going to be doing most of the work. The bombers themselves are not super fast, but they do have the ability to dive bomb, so that's something. Your bombing reticule is always going to be on point. You can basically just kind of pull off whatever maneuver you need to in order to get the bombs to go where you want them to go. Same with the A4. Really only the difference with the A4 and the previous model is the fact that it can carry 500 kilogram bombs and then the 1,000-pound suppository again. Also, it gets the same guns as the C6 model, where it has the 2 up top that's controlled by the one gunner, and then like the weird double-barreled one down there with little bits and pieces of armor here and there. But these are, if you're looking to fly bombers for Germany, these are fun things to look forward to. Moving over to the premiums a little bit, I know I didn't talk too much about the Italian premiums here, really only because I forgot one existed, and the only other one is the starter aircraft, which is the exact same as the C-42 you get in the tech tree. But since this one's technically gone, you get the Bf-109A. Now, why I like the Bf-109A is because it really teaches you more about boom and zoom tactics than most of the other planes at Tier 1. Because most Tier 1 planes are going to be some sort of biplane or they turn really well, and it doesn't really teach you what the rest of the tech tree is going to be about. You definitely want to, with a 21.5-second turn time here, you want to climb and you want to dive at people. You do have the two machine guns here in the prop hub. No armor to speak of whatsoever. And everything is sort of right down the middle here. And you only got, what was that? Double spar that turns into one. So yeah, just be careful about getting your wing shot off, because your double spar kind of turns into one, sort of. The only reason why I don't have this plane is because I'm just not super interested in it, because it's essentially a worse version of the B1, with the B1 late, which is in the tech tree here normally. So I would suggest, unless you get this one for free as your first victory plane, just stick with the BF-109 B1 late. So overall, what would I suggest about the rank 1 German aircraft? Well, you do have a lot of variety. With the Italians, they're basically all the same plane, so you kind of have to play them all the same. But you've got some turn fighters here and there, which this plane doesn't exist. But most of these planes here, I would suggest, are best in the boom and zoom playstyle, especially the heavy fighters here, which are going to teach you very well. The BF-110 will probably be the best at that, but we'll just have to see where it takes you. But you have a little bit of different playstyles. You got really nice ground attackers. You've got pretty decent bombers. These ones still the best in my opinion. You've got a very, very nice ground attacker in the Stukas. Very nice ground attacker. You can drop 1,000-pounder bomb or 1,000-kilogram, and then you can just drop several different bombs with that one. And then when this one drops its bombs, you have a perfectly capable fighter. You have an okay heavy fighter, but then you get an amazing heavy fighter, like the best heavy fighter in the game so far that I've played. And then you get this plane mostly just trolls people because they're like, oh, it's a Ju-88. I have no problem going head-on with him. He's only got one gun. Then they see the C6 at the end and 320mm come flying at them. But that's one other thing that you might be attracted to, is the fact that most of the fighters here have the addition of cannons. The HE-112B1 here is basically an exact copy of the HE-112B0 here, so if you like the HE-112 playstyle where the engine isn't super powerful, but you just fall in love with the plane like I did and put really just dumb decals all over it because you like putting dumb decals on everything. They're definitely capable fighters. These are what I'd say would be these three here, the HE-112s and the BF-110. These three really make Tier 1, at least for me. If you're a ground attacker, definitely these lines here, because at 1.3, 1.7, 1.7, 1.3, and then another bomber or reserve share, you have a perfect lineup for arcade. Now I have 6 planes lined up here. These 3 are battle ranking 2. They just happen to have low battle rankings, so we're not going to talk about these for now. But, you can have a decent fighter lineup. Just be careful, once again, that you do jump pretty high in the battle rankings, this one being the highest here. The Ju-88's at 2.7, so you will see 3.7s, and you might see 4.7s, because you will go 2 whole battle rankings higher. So just be careful if you bring out a JU-88 and you've got, you know, HE-112s and HE-51s. Just be careful that your HE-51s will get slaughtered. But the guns on all these planes are pretty darn good. I haven't really had any complaints about the MG-FF or 151 cannons or the MG-17s. They all have decent rates of fire, especially the cannons have a decent rate of fire. Like I said, except for the HE-112 with the one cannon that has a really slow rate of fire, but it's still pretty good for what it is at Battle Ranking 2.0. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna have some gameplay here soon. I'm gonna have a lineup of, I guess you can say, what most people's lineup is gonna be. So I'm gonna have the biplanes, the HE-112 V5, the HS-123A1, and then I might throw in the smaller one here at 2.0, just to kind of give in a retrospect what your lineup might look like. But anyway, guys, hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.